Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining for today's session. This is Leverage AI for Good. This session is about activate your time. Please note that closed captioning is available and can be enabled at the bottom of your Zoom screen. My name is Maya Jubnovsky. I'm very happy to be here. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm part of the amazing Philanthropy Together team. We are a global initiative to grow and strengthen the field of collective giving with programming like We Give Summit. So today we're going to discover how to reap the benefits of AI while embedding ethical values. Throughout the session, please engage with us in the chat and be mindful of our community guidelines that we will share on the chat. Also, at the close of the session, we encourage you to share your feedback and answer a 2-question poll. And also stay with us until the end because we will be announcing a winner of our raffle that it's a book of their choice. We will contact you directly, but stay until the end. With that being said, let's welcome our amazing moderator for today, Beth Kanter. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you so much, Maya, for that great introduction. And I'm just so excited to be here. Very excited to see all the people that are saying hello in the chat. And even more excited to be joined by Rachel Kimber from Full Impact Solutions and Meena from Namaste Data. And I've been huge fans of their work for a long time, and more recently their work in generative AI. So I'm just so excited to have them with me, and I hope they'll just come off a mute and say hello and just give a brief intro of themselves. Rachel? I know it's a little funny. It's going to tell you that you can unmute.
Yes, it's a little slow, but here we are. I am Rachel Kimber from Full Circle Impact Solutions, and I am supporting our sector to begin learning how to play and explore AI within a people, process, and tools framework. And I will pass that intro to Meena.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I am Meena Das. I am joining from beautiful Vancouver, which is the unceded and ancestral lands of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I work for my consulting practice called Namaste Data, where I work at this intersection of data, AI, equity, everything that makes us overwhelming but human. I work on that, and I'm really excited to be here with Rachel and Beth.
That's great. I love that we're all together here because I know that we all share both a love of technology, but also a commitment to our communities and to social justice issues, and also to being teachers and trainers and mentors to people. So for today, we had so much fun designing this session. So it's gonna be fast moving. We'll start with an overview and some level setting, do a little quick polling, and then we'll move into a fireside chat. And here we're going to talk about what I like to call the balcony issues, the view from above, really how to hold both the benefits and the power of this new technology while also stepping very carefully and holding our values close. And then we're going to shift onto the dance floor, right? Because you want to get that balcony view, but you also want to get your hands on it and get a sense of what it's like. So we're going to do some demos. We'll have time to take some questions at the end, hopefully, and then finish up with some takeaways and next steps and some resource sharing. So, and again, just to emphasize what Maya said at the beginning, please do share in the chat your questions, your comments, your insights, and also your experience, because we're all learning this technology together. So to begin, we're going to get a sense of who's here. And this is a Slido poll. So you can point your phone at that QR code and go, or just open another tab and go to slido.com and use the code AI-WeGive. It doesn't matter whether it's all caps or camel case. Just type in that code and answer the survey question. We want to know a little bit of where you are in terms of using these tools for your giving circle work. Have you tried it a few times? Are you using it regularly? Have you not used it at all? Or have you fully integrated it into your workload? And every answer is the right answer. Just want to see where we are. I love watching this, mesmerizing. That's great. I've been asking this question over the last 7 or 8 years since I've been researching and working on AI leading up to my book. And it's been interesting to see how the percentages have shifted. You know, in the beginning, it was mostly people had heard of it, but hadn't used it at all. And gradually we're seeing the move towards experimenting a few times to actually using it regularly and full on up into integration of workflow. So, so that's great. Any comments, Meena or Rachel, on the polling so far? Anything you'd like to say?
Beth, I am encouraged to see have not used it at all. It's not on the front, like it's not on the top. It's 26% right now. So it's encouraging to see that we have used it a few times. And I also am encouraged by the honesty of the 26% there, saying we have not used it at all. So interesting poll.
That's great. Yes. And we definitely want to, we'll be talking a lot how to step into it carefully. So it's okay wherever you are, we're going to meet you where you're at. Yeah. Great. And just before we get started, there's, you know, this technology generates a lot of feelings, if you will. So we want to know, we're going to create this little word cloud. Again, just go up and answer the question. Just tell us 3 words how you're feeling about AI. And again, this is another question I've been asking over the last couple of years. So I always like to get a reading of where we are. Just 3 words that describe where you are. And of course, with word clouds, more people that use the same word, those words are bigger. The other words are smaller, but it's just a nice way to get some themes going on.
Yeah, and Beth, if we would have time, Shamira and Jacqueline here mentioned in the chat, and I agree with them. I would be interested too to know how does the fully integrated version looks like for the, I think 5 or 7%. If you'll have time, we can like include some.
Yeah, we can talk about that too. Yeah. So I think mostly not from a task here and there, but really to really think through your whole workflow and places where the AI can really is appropriate to use and can be really helpful in giving you more time. Great. So I see again, I don't know what you mean. I think I always see it both holding 2 different extremes, one kind of scared, intimidated, unsure, hesitant on one side of it, and then on the other, kind of excited, curious, and interested. And it's okay to hold both sides of that continuum. Don't you think?
I would agree. This is the perfect formula for starting something new. Excited, unsure, curious, interested. Love it.
Awesome. Great. So I'm just going to do some level setting. I found in my many decades of working with nonprofit tech that never to make assumptions and to always begin with some basic definitions. So, so let's just define what we mean by generative AI and what we're going to be talking about. So generative AI is powered by something called large language models, LLM for short. And these models are trained on huge amounts of data from the internet, right? And have ingested both the great stuff and also the bad stuff. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And what it does is this training allows them to understand and generate human-like, not human equivalent, but human-like text, images, audios, even videos. And so when you ask generative AI software a question or give it a task, and that's how easy it is to learn how to use these tools, simply ask a question, like writing social media content for your giving circle, or maybe analyzing a survey or feedback from one of your events. It uses this training to provide you with a response. So I like to think of large language models as the foundation of a house, and it's a big foundation there. And the models, you see the names of various models that are out there on the screen: ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Anthropic Claude, Facebook's Llama, Microsoft Copilot, and so forth. Most of the models are developed by large corporations because they're expensive to develop and also to maintain. But what's most of us are using, if not directly the models themselves, applications that are built on top of the models, like the house there that you see. And this allows us to do many of the regular tasks that we might do to manage our giving circles or collective giving or any type of work. And what makes this technology truly transformative, I think, is that it goes beyond just automating rote tasks. It can begin to approximate being a thought partner, providing you some feedback on maybe your drafts or your writing, even help you with brainstorming. And I think we're only scratching the surface of what generative AI can do. And we have to remember that these models are developing fast. I've been through a couple cycles of disruptive technology, and this feels a lot faster. And they're improving faster. So what we're using today are probably going to end up being the most primitive things we ever use, and we'll probably laugh about it in a couple of years. And so we're really at the beginning of this technology adoption that will have a transformative impact across many fields, including collective giving. And so when I talk to a lot of leaders about using this, I either hear one of two things. I hear FOMO, fear of missing out, not quite as often. And so this is kind of like, I want to jump in and get in there, or I'm going to miss something, or something called FIGI, F-I-G-I, which is the fear of getting in. So if you have FOMO, it's okay to slow down and step back and think about the ethical approaches. If you have FIGI, remember this technology isn't perfect and it does require ethical and responsible use, but that's not a reason not to engage. And in fact, we're going to be talking a lot about that because there's many reasons why we should be engaging. And I just want to define this whole concept of dividend of time. The dividend of time. I'm sorry, I think I heard something, but I'm going to move forward.
I'm so
the dividend of time is is a precious commodity in our sector, and generative AI is really proving to be a game changer.
I'm running
here.
Across the street. I think there's a
and I think somebody needs to mute themselves. Okay, so
oops, how do I get out?
So what you're seeing here are some results from a recent Harvard Business School study where they gave access to ChatGPT-4, which we all have access to a group of consultants and asked them to do different tasks. And the ones that had access to the tool were able to complete 12% more tasks, 25% faster, and 40% better quality. And this isn't a one-off. We're seeing a lot of productivity gains across many different studies. But we have to remember that productivity isn't just about speed. It's what Allison Fine and I described in our book as the dividend of time. It's a gift for collective giving leaders to really shift from maybe any busyness and to really focusing on mission critical work and reallocating our time to focus on deepening connections and opening up new learning. And I think the most important skill for all of us to learn is when do we leverage the AI and when do we make sure that we preserve our human tasks and our human intelligence and our human knowledges. So it's really about learning to collaborate with it. And one of the skills, and we're going to demo this, is really about prompting or asking questions guided by clear values. And the one thing I'm going to end with is saying that those of us in collective giving, and I co-lead a giving circle myself, all of us, we know what values-based decision-making is, and we know what values-based behavior is. And so all we need to learn is how do we apply this lens to the way that we're using the tools. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about and what we hope to show you. So let's just jump into the conversation, if we will. Okay. Little fireside chat here, and I'm going to stop sharing. And is Rachel still with us?
Yeah, I think so. Beth.
Oh, okay, I just got a note. She's having some tech issues.
Okay.
Okay, great. Oh, okay, Meena. So we'll just like hop right into this. Great. It's never, it's never about like if there's going to be tech issues. It's like when there are, what are you going to do about it? So we just move forward. Yep. So, like, Meena, I would love to hear your take on why do we have to remain human-centered?
But I love this question so much, even when we were planning, because I'm going to pull a page of my own story here, if you allow me.
Oh, of course.
So I grew up in the beautiful country, India. I moved 8 years ago to States. I have worked in the tech side of things for 15 years. And maybe for the last 6 years, I've been focusing more on the nonprofit sector. Anyway, so 7 years ago, when I was still working in the tech company, one of the tech companies in the States, I met an accident. I went to get my lunch, got into the cafeteria that was still in the office. There was water. I rolled over the floor and there was my teeth on the floor. It was a horrible accident. But what happened was I couldn't speak for 3 months, and it became this little case between my company who was hiring me and the company where I was going to eat food, basically the cafeteria. It became a case, who should be paying for my surgery? Neither did, by the way. But here's what happened. I was part of 2 databases. The first month of my accident, I was part of 2 databases. I was part of the USCIS department, getting my visa number, which is like, gives me some powers in the country. And I was also part of the Labor's Department of Washington, because I met an accident. So I had this 9-digit case number and I had my visa number. I was part of 2 very important databases of the country, and I was still not paid for the surgery. That experience was pivotal for me in my life, because that made me realize that being in the data can be vulnerable, can be dangerous, can make you feel alienated, regardless of how important the database is, regardless of how many unique identification numbers you have. Being in data can make you feel powerless. And that moment made me started to question our values with data, how we show up with data, how we work with data differently. I started to question, what does it mean to bring my identity and lived experiences with data? I should be held accountable for how I bring identity, or all of us should be held accountable. Fast forward that to AI. AI is, it's built on data. It's the data times 100. That's what AI is. We are training our systems on data. Data is what is teaching those AI solutions the values it needs to have be human-centric. So why we need AI to be human-centric is not to miss the stories of the people, the unique parts of our stories that you and I have, that may be represented or misrepresented or underrepresented in the data. Before it goes to AI, this is where we need it to be human-centric, to ensure that the voices and the stories do not get, logged out of our systems. This is why I would say we need it to be not just human-centric, very humanity-centric systems.
Yes, that the people whose data is in the system should have a voice on how it's being used and to be able to shape it. And it's also one reason why we need to think about it almost, it's participatory, right? and that it's not just this technical tool and anonymous pieces of data. I mean, there's people behind that, and we need to always have human oversight so that we're not doing harm to the people by focusing on the unhuman data, if you will.
Absolutely. We are almost every day teaching our algorithms and AI systems around us by our values, how to be improved and better. When we say another LLM is improving, it's improving on the values that we are teaching it through our data.
Right. And the values that we approach to it, and we can recognize when we see some output from it that, no, this is not something that I'm going to accept, and I'm going to push back on it. Right. And I think another human-centric value is also like doing no harm to any of the people that you're serving by, using this technology. Right. So, hi, Rachel, popping in great at the next question.
We kind of difficulties.
No worries, that always happens. So we talked about the importance of being human-centric, and to remember that there are people behind that data, and to always give them a voice and to kind of be participatory. I'd love to know your thoughts about how could AI benefit the communities that Giving Circles and Collective Giving support.
Yeah, I think there are some neat emergent use cases, but I think what's more exciting is to be thinking about how are we thinking AI, right? And so I think the communities that are already comfortable with their workflows and the technologies that are being used really need to start reflecting on how could AI make these practices more efficient? And so really kind of reviewing what are those places that make you go like, oh, I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to have to work on this. And so that is, I think, one of the pieces that need to be looked at.
That's right. Meena, do you have any additional thoughts there?
No, I would agree with what Rachel said, Beth. I was going to give some examples, but I'll probably hold on. Having the privilege of seeing the questions, I'm going to hold on to an example or two for a question that's going to come up.
Which is next in a way, but I do want to actually ask a follow-up question to Rachel about, the kind of, so that there's one piece of it that's like our internal workflows, right? And there's all that. There's some parts of our work that, are not fun and they take a lot of time and they're repetitive. And maybe this is a great thing that we could, delegate to the AI, right? But then there are other examples where we might be using it to interact with our constituents or to deliver important program information. And Rachel, you talk a lot about like participatory AI and how you involve the end users. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I think there's 3 framings that really help to think about where to start applying AI. And my point before was around, your use cases best, and they haven't even been created yet. You know what needs to be developed, you know what those pain points are. And so there's the individual, right? What do you need to make your day run smoother? There's the external. What do your external partners need? Your stakeholders, your nonprofit partners, your corporate vendors. What information do we need to be sharing externally? And could AI make that more efficient? And then the third one is systemic, right? And that's where we start looking at participatory grant making, where there are whole new paradigms. Giving circles and collective giving are new ways of moving resources across the sector. And so I think as we're leaning into what does systemic change look like in partnership with AI, that's where the conversation can get really exciting. So we can start looking at how do we organize our information, our knowledge collectively? How do we drive impact at a systems and sector level instead of individually? And that's what AI is going to facilitate for us.
Oh, that's great. I get so excited about that vision, but tangibly, what might that look like?
Yes, nix the form, right? We've talked about fix the form for so many years. We have recipients on one side and we have the resources, time, talent, treasure on the other side. How can we automate that? How can we connect those dots more quickly, more seamlessly, more accurately? And I think the other caution is that AI is an accelerant. So wherever you're going to apply that, it needs to be thoughtful and precise because it's going to move fast. And so that's the concern we have about implicit bias, right? It's only going to get exponentially worse if we don't get a hands on it more quickly, more efficiently, because that's what AI does. It accelerates whatever it is we as humans are already doing. So I think
Both
nix
the
the form.
good, the bad, and the ugly.
Exactly. And so those administrative functions, nix the form, spend more time getting to know your partners, getting to develop relationships, getting to see what that work looks like, instead of spending time wading through, the data and the metrics, being able to just take those insights and action and generate the impact that we're trying to generate.
That's great. So can each of you share, you shared one use case. Meena, do you have a use case that you would like to share that sort of illustrates some of the benefits to collective giving sector or maybe to nonprofits? What are some that you've seen that have inspired you?
Absolutely. This one is coming right out of the conversation I had 2 days ago. This one organization is using AI to conduct, and this is a giving circle as well, out of here in Canada. They are using AI to have conversations, interviews with the communities. They hold their listening sessions using AI. They collect these interviews for who could be the possible grantees. And then they are using AI to disseminate information out of it, parse information out of it, hold it as a repository of truth, as a library, and also parse information out of those qualitative interview analysis, as opposed to doing those, Rachel, you went nix the form, they actually did. They took away all those 60 question grant making forms. No to that, only do interviews, disseminate it, talk through it. And it's quite an interesting process and how they're using AI to actually connect with the community. So offer that.
And so in addition to the time savings, I can imagine, especially when you don't have when you've not collected information in a structured way, to be able to like boil it down, and you have a lot of it, to boil it down into some key themes, that's probably a huge time saving. I've seen generative AI is really good at that. What other benefits, Meena, has the Giving Circle experience from this use?
The other examples I would say that is from AI. So AI can have a lot of different options, like flavors, right? Generative AI is one option. Then there's predictive modeling, which has existed in the past. So Giving Circles, I have seen also used the predictive modeling parts of it. So, you know, when you want to predict something, you have the data about your communities and you are trying to predict something, which are the most populations where you can make the most impact. So in terms of impact measurement, I've seen use of predictive modeling in those cases. So there are a lot of different ways AI can be built into our workflows for efficiencies.
That's great. So not only summarizing kind of the key themes, but also based on the data, doing some predictive analysis. And there was a question here about how did AI actually interview the community?
So they hold the interviews together. So they come into the Zoom room. This is the practical aspect. They come into the Zoom room. There's a AI tool like Otter or one of those tools that would capture the interview, that would record it, and then they would disseminate the information. And they would collect all these interviews in one folder, which is their community repository, where people can go and find the sources of these truths. So they call it Truth Library or Community Repository, and then people can go and actually get to these disseminations.
Great. So they used a tool like a voice to text tool like Otter, which would take a complete transcript of what was said, and then for their analysis, use the AI to like extract themes and some analysis. Right. So let's cover some of the ethical risks. You know, somebody asked in the Q&A here, talked about like the risk of it making up stuff and not being factual. We know that there's a whole host of things: privacy, IP rights, transparency. You know, what should giving circles be aware of, or people in collective giving, around the ethical risks and sort of navigating the risks? Oh, and I forgot one: bias, a big one, huh? Rachel, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the ethical risk increases exponentially as we do not lean into these conversations about AI, as we continue having a fear reaction instead of a curiosity reaction to this new tool. And so I think there are ethical risks. They exist. The bias, we have built it into our large language models. They exist. What are we as a nonprofit sector, as a values aligned sector, as mission driven organizations, what are we doing to help mitigate those risks? And I think that's the big question I have right now is, if we don't understand AI, how are we stepping into those conversations? And so I think, you know, the questions around IP are really salient to communities that are innovative, creative, and trying to create a footprint. And then AI comes in and, you know, it just kind of makes a mess of that picture. So how do we as nonprofit organizations make sure that our point of view is heard? We get comfortable with AI. We start understanding what are those things you're pointing to, Beth? What is implicit bias? What are the ethical risks? We can, you know, pull up all the articles and we can read about it and talk about it. But for me, the call is understand that technology is a reflection of us as humans. Technology was built by the tech vendors who are a type of person generally, right? So
what
if
type
we
of person,
you can create your own picture, right? Like I immediately get, you know, the tech bro picture, right? Like, and that's my own prejudice, my own stereotype. I own that. But if that's the picture I hold when I step into these AI conversations, and I know I'm not that, I know that I'm adding value. I'm adding something to these conversations that otherwise wouldn't be seen, heard, and talked about it. And so that's my starting point for these ethical conversations, is don't get bogged down in the heaviness of the words and not investigate, not be curious, not play, but understand that there is substantial risk involved. And that's why we need to step in and start exploring the tool.
And push back. Meena, what are your thoughts on this? Ethical risks. Rachel talked about bias and the importance of being there to push back against the bias. Right. And also maybe having conversations internally about like clarifying what our values are, about what we accept and what we don't accept. Right. Say more, Meena. What are your thoughts here?
Two things. Excellent response, by the way, Rachel. I love that. two things are coming to my mind. One is I want to talk about the ethical risks when we talk of AI. So AI is built on data, but I want to talk about the wheel of AI, and I usually call it the wheel of AI. You have an objective, right? This is your, let's say the pen is your objective. You're doing something about this. This is where you're bringing AI. You're going to start collecting data about that AI. That's your step one, right? Then you are going to put it through a model, which I would like to call algorithm. You would put it through that. It would do some processing. That's step two. It's going to create some output. Step three, you are going to interpret that output. Step four, it's going to go into strategy. Step five, and then it's going to affect some actions, affect impact. That's step six. Ethical concerns come in every step. So not just in terms of data, which is building the values of AI systems, but also in terms of how you are interpreting the output. What models did you use in your algorithms when you sent your data in? How are you munging your data? Which data points did you hold higher in value when you're sending into your algorithms versus not? So every step has a lot of different ethical concerns. That's true. But it's also true, how do we navigate that? So for my second point in this response, I want to bring back to that a same example of interview. This organization who's doing interview using AI systems, they didn't just start one day that, okay, now 4 of us in the team, we are going to start using these AI system to do interviews. They first came up with their AI values. These are the bare minimum values. We are going to hold ourselves accountable, that this is how we are going to maintain the dignity, the care, and the respect when we are holding these interviews. What is going to be recorded? Where is it going to be recorded? Does everybody in the room know how we are using AI? It's not just me personally using AI. My interviewee must also know. So they built those values, which is helping them to navigate some of those challenges that can happen in different points in time. And then they are bringing and using this AI. So ethical concerns exist in every point, starting from data till the end of that wheel. But then we can also navigate that by being very intentional and choosing the values that we are capable of owning.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So what I'm hearing is, is that we have to be thoughtful, right? And we have to have the conversation, and we have to really, it seems like what we do in our giving circle when we make giving decisions, but we're just applying it to the technology before we're just jumping in, right?
Exactly,
and then,
Beth.
but
Yes.
we also at the same time need to create what I call like a playground with a big fence, if you will, and find safe ways where we can experiment. And that's where I think about like the continuum of risks. Like there's certain types of use cases that may pose a higher risk. Like the one I think, Meena, that you described is maybe on the higher end because you're interacting with external stakeholders and there's some privacy concerns. But I think on the lower end of the continuum are things that Rachel had mentioned about like using it just to getting started to experiment, using it for different tasks, even if it's just maybe using one of the writing tools and identifying some writing tasks and thinking about like, okay, so maybe we understand about like privacy issues and what kind of information or data might be in our prompts that we won't put into a public system. The concept of not falling asleep at the wheel, because we know these tools are prone to hallucinations. And they also are very confident in the way that they dispense the information. I like to call it mansplaining as a service. Apologies to anybody on here, but we can be fooled, right? That, oh, this is correct when it's not. And they hallucinate in very subtle ways. So don't fall asleep at the wheel. And there's always somebody checking it, human checking. There's one last question before we kind of shift into the dance floor. There was a question here about the, we've been asked this question a lot about what do we anticipate about AI reducing the workforce, and how is this going to impact nonprofits? And are we going to have mass layoffs, or are we going to just have to accomplish more with less in our sector? What do you think? Rachel, take a shot at it.
It's always accomplishing more with less, unfortunately, but that's where I think AI provides us an opportunity. There really are efficiency gains for some of that administrative pain, right? Like we've all felt it, we've all gone through it. And so how can you figure out how to deploy a tool to help hold some of that administrative work so that we can focus on deepening relationships and learning and impact? I also want to speak to the question of like, what's the confidence level in being able to do this? I know it's low. That's why we're here talking about it today, because it's not easy to encounter something new and different and not react with a flight flight or freeze, right? And so to be able to explore AI with curiosity, to build that playground with the really tall fence and really big, right? You know, to give yourself that spaciousness to say, okay, we're not going to take proprietary data and stick it into the tool, but we do need to start exploring. We do need to start playing. And I don't think AI is going to take anyone's job in the near term, but I think in the near term, AI enabled employees are going to increase in value. And if that's already happening, there's already numbers out there that say folks who can use AI are already more valuable employees than those who haven't touched the tool. So that's my call today, is just try it. Just try, generate something, and you'll already be ahead of a lot of the field.
You know, I take comfort from some of the economic data that's specific to nonprofit jobs that LinkedIn has been crunching related to this whole question of, will the robots take our jobs? Not yet, jobs won't be completely automated, but certain skills within jobs might be. And they're saying that 12% of skills will be automated and 39% will be shifted. And take, for example, and shifted doesn't mean, you know, that someone is unemployed or their job disappears. It means that it frees up time for them to do something else. I always give the example of, if there's a major gift prospect person doing desk research and AI can reduce 10 hours of that time to 1 hour, then they have 9 hours to really interact with the donor. Great. So let's get to the dance floor.
Yeah, I was like, we're going to show you how, right? Like, how does that happen? How do you save time? And then how do you use the predictive piece, right? And that's where I think it gets really exciting, because as Meena knows, data expert over there, you can't keep it all in your head. And so if you can't keep it all in your head, you put it into a tool that says, oh, you're going to go chat with this giving circle, and this is what they're interested in, and this is where they're showing up and how they're showing up. And all of that data is ready for you. You don't have to spend days preparing for that discussion. You're ready to go.
Yeah, that's great. So the first question is not to ask, like, what tool should I use? It's really to think about and we're going to focus it on generative AI writing tasks. We're going to start at that playground with the big fence, lower risk use case. That's what we're going to be thinking about. And we want you all to take a moment. We're going to do a chatterful, which is basically, we're going to put a prompt here in the chat, and we want you all to respond. And the question is, what tasks do you find time consuming, even painful, when it comes to managing your giving circle or collective giving fund that relate to writing, or maybe survey analysis? An analysis or writing task that's just taking up so much time, or that you're doing it a lot. And that if the AI was able to do it ethically and responsibly, it could really free up time for you. So think about that and share it in the chat. And don't worry about reading everything. You know, I'm hoping Rachel and Meena are going to look at your responses so we can figure out a use case to demonstrate.
And I don't have a great use case for this one, but the scheduling meetings, I know the pain of the assistant to the CEO, right? Who spends an entire 40 hours a week trying to organize and manage scheduling of calendars. So yeah, there you go. And again, is it taking the job? No, because the CEO still needs support in other ways, but you don't have to spend half of your day moving little calendar blocks all over if AI is helping do that.
Okay, so I see making membership up. I'm looking for some writing tasks, scheduling meetings. Yeah, especially with the tools that are embedded in our workspace tools, like Microsoft Team tools and also Google Workspace. We're going to see a lot of that facility to schedule meetings. So note taking, writing emails. Okay.
Emails, yeah.
Writing emails. Okay. Summarizing meetings for decision. Okay. Since let's just take that. All right. As an example. All right. And I'm going to share my desktop, and I'm going to figure out which tab that I'm going to open, because I have so many here. Hold on. I'm going to pull up a large language model that's available for free. Also, you can get the pro version. It's Anthropic Claude. This is just one of them. It works very much like the others, ChatGPT, and by typing in your prompt, which is your question, And the use case here is like an email, okay, writing an email. And if you just said writing emails, your prompts have to be specific, right? And when I always think of prompts, there's 4 things to think about. What are they? I'm going to do a little role, right? Context, task, and format. All right. So we're going to make something up because this would be in your prompt. So let's say, what role do we want the AI to play? Do we want it to be a copywriter or something else? Thoughts here? How about you are the leader of a highly successful giving circle. I need you to draft an email to our members as a follow-up to attending an engagement event. All right, so we've told the role. We want it to be like a copywriter. We give it a little context that, it's an experienced giving circle. We could say our giving circle is, I'll use mine. Giving circle is the San Jose Women for Good Giving Circle. We had a dinner meeting last night where we voted on grants. Please write, and here's the task. This is the next thing. So we've given it role and context. And this is where you have to really think about what's confidential, what may be private information. Right now, this is not. It's okay. Please write a thank you email using a friendly but professional tone and some emojis. For an email follow-up, for a follow-up email. To follow up. Okay. Okay. Anything else that I should change in this prompt, Meena or
I just
Rachel?
want to flag, Beth, that like everyone has their own Google style. Everyone has their own prompt style, right? You have to refine it. If you ever watch someone else try and Google something, you're like, oh, that's not how I would input that. And so as Beth is prompting, you're getting a really good framework. But you can also take this and decide to be much more detailed. You could be like Rachel Kimber and you just type in 1 sentence real fast and see what you get. But that's learning your prompt style so that you're getting the responses that you need. And in one of the questions, it was, AI doesn't seem to be working that well for me when I put these prompts in. That's you getting to explore your prompt style and figuring out which tool might be a good fit for the kind of work that you're doing.
Right.
So let's try it and see what it does.
And I love, like, emojis are my jam. They may not be everyone's jam. So you'd go in, you take out the emojis and you see, like, does the content work, right, Beth?
Right, exactly. Like I would go, what I would typically do from here is I hit click on copy and then I would edit it, right?
Beth, I
Yeah, go
actually
ahead, Meena.
improving on the same prompt. Like, if I would ask it to write an email, I say, okay, now improve on it to make the word count to be this much with 4 more action items that the readers can take. So like keep working on the prompt till you get a draft, then you copy it and take it to the Word document.
Absolutely. So let's do that.
Gold,
So like we should
guys.
say,
that
please.
was a gold recommendation right there. Like
Right.
take that and use it over and over and over again. That was brilliant, Meena. Thank you.
So please revise this email to be a briefer
Right.
and easily scannable. Now you're going to see that I can't spell. Something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's like some people worry about composing that perfect prompt, but it's okay to iterate.
Yeah, totally.
So there you go. So then you can always go to copy and, make it in your style. You can also give it an example of your style and have it revise it that way. So do we have time for one more? Rachel, how would you prompt? Give us a use case and example.
Write an email for my giving circle to thank them for deciding on who our grant partners will be.
grant partners.
Grant partners.
Yours will
And
be.
again, I think this is where the prompt style comes out. I'm usually moving really fast and I expect to do a good amount of editing once I've gotten past the blank sheet, right? So I expect that this is not going to be as refined and beautiful as Beth and Meena's was, but my trade-off is I spent less time with the prompt. Now I'm going to spend a little bit more time working on the content. So that's where, you know, you figure out what's your style.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different ways to work with the AI. Like some people like write that first draft for me and then I'll take it from there. Others like to break down different parts of their workflow. Like, oh, I'm really great at writing this first draft, but I'm stuck on a subject line header. And then you could ask it to brainstorm, like, here we go, let's do that. Like, just gave me an idea. Let's just do one more example. And we're going to ask it for, I'm really stuck on the subject line. So please brainstorm 20 email subject lines for this email. Okay, it's really good at being creative. And much faster than my brain would work.
Flying in, Beth, I want to just point everyone back to LinkedIn, where Beth, Meena, and I are very active. And so if we don't get to your questions in real time, there's a good chance we'll answer them on LinkedIn later tonight.
That's great. And I want to keep an eye on the time, because we could do this forever, right? And we're coming up against the end. And also in some of the resources that we're sharing, I know I put a resource sheet in there. I do a lot of training, and you'll find prompting techniques and prompting approaches. And again, you will develop your own style of working with it. Everybody's different, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, right?
Absolutely.
Great. So in the 2 minutes that we have left, what are some of your takeaways for this group? And I want to have us multitask. I want folks to type that into the chat, and then I'm going to go to Meena and then to Rachel to share what's your takeaway from this conversation, and what's your takeaway advice to the group?
I only have one takeaway, Beth, here. What is that? This is an overwhelming conversation. I have been part of this, doing this for several years now, and the themes and the topic and the questions and it's the same. This is the exact kind of title and conversation I have had last year, the year before that. It just means that we need to have patience. We need to trust this process. We need to trust ourselves. Somebody asked if the jobs are going to go away or not. This is how I see our relationship with AI. We are in a phase of transformation. You and I are kind of that person who can say in 80 years from now, we will have something flying as the mode of transportation. That's not a possibility with AI right now. We hold that, it's called imagination. And so we are in that process of transformation, holding the key of imagination. So I want you to trust your process. I want you to trust yourself, put patience, but know that you have imagination, and using that, you are going to build a very good relationship with AI. I think that's my takeaway.
That's great. Rachel?
Yeah, I will underscore Meena's expertise with data. I think you can't really deploy AI very well at an enterprise level if you haven't started your data cleansing process. And so that would be your starting point. Look at your data, decide where are those questions that you need answering. 2 more takeaways. One of them, I'm a cognitive scientist. I know the chasms that exist between the brain and the mind. And then to think that a computer can replicate things like creativity, intuition, we still don't know why we dream, right? Science hasn't come up with a really good explanation for what that is and why it happens. And so when we talk about hallucinations in AI, that's our attempt to build bridges between what's happening within our magnificent nonprofit brains and what a computer can do. And so while that bridge needs to be built, we're in that transformational space, as Meena said. So stay brave, stay curious, and stay transformational with us.
That's great. And I think I would sort of sum this all up by that. I would encourage all of us in collective giving and in this sector to close the know, learn, do gap. Okay, we know this is going to be transformative. We know we have to approach it with our highest ethical standards, but we know that we have to get in and learn. And the nice thing about this is that there's no secret club. You don't have to have highly technical skills. It's very democratized. Any of us can learn it. And then we have to do, and what we have to go out and do and make sure that we're deploying this technology with the greatest impact for change and to making our communities better and the world better. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for our two amazing speakers, Meena and Rachel. And thank you. And I'm going to turn it back to my friends at We Give Summit.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Meena, Rachel. This was an amazing session. Thank you all for being here. So please remember to answer our poll before leaving this session. Also, this session will be available on your agenda in the next probably 48 hours. And the last but not least, our winner for today's raffle is Jemima Atanasio. We'll be in touch so you can choose your book. Thank you again for joining us. Remember, you have to go back to Huba and then log in again for the next session. Our next session is Give Outside the Box, and it starts at the top of the hour. So in the meantime, if you have time, we invite you all to come and visit and engage in the community board. Thank you so much, and see you on the next session.